Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser Podcast. It is Monday. We're back in action. All three of us are here. We have a chipper Bickler who was literally dancing along to the intro. Now he's coughing out a lung, but that's a different story. I am your host, as always, Timuchin here in Chicago. And with us is the normal duo. The head bobbing Bickler is with us. Bickler, what's happened?
What's going on?
Not much. And causing havoc in traffic and all over the state over there is Gally. He is too soon, Bickler.
I'll give a full apology. If anyone is listening to this podcast, I was traveling northbound down Route 5 around 8 p.m. last Thursday. I probably gave you a serious scare. And, I'll also apologize to the woman downstairs because I know I gave her a real scare as well.
Well, I mean, she's put the insurance policy back in the drawer.
Truth
is,
everything was good right up until I texted her and was like, accident was really bad. And I was waiting for the next text that's like, is your head still attached? Because I get an extra $150,000 if it's not.
That's a good policy. Actually, I should get that on the wifey myself. Okay, here we go. It's trivia time. So add misery to misery, and I'm kind of liking this over here, makes life a lot easier for me. We have BJ here as always with us asking the questions. BJ, what's happening, man?
How's it going, gentlemen?
Well, I was gonna say these guys are ready to go, except I don't know about Bickler. He's coughing along over there, but hopefully he'll make it. But go ahead. I heard about a question this week, so let's see.
And I'm not even putting up any fancy graphics because I want you guys to have to look in my beady little eyes the whole time, because you seem to enjoy that so much last week. So here we go. Just to get that disappointment factor going. All right. World Cup. We're close to the finals. We know in 1966, Roger Hunt, Liverpool player at the time, played all 120 minutes of the game against West Germany, lifted old Jules Rimet, still gleaming for that stupid song. The only English Liverpool player to have hoisted the trophy. One other Liverpool player, or Liverpool at the time player, has played in a World Cup final and won. Who was it? What country did he play for? And which Liverpool teammate did he defeat in the final?
That's some good shit right there.
It's ridiculous, wrong, and not getting answered.
No way.
Let me ruin a segment.
It was not that long ago.
It's not
there's only been four other players from Liverpool who have been in the World Cup final.
This is so annoying. This is like
you're gonna hate yourself. The disappointment's just gonna roll off of you. We're gonna bask in this.
Yeah, because honestly, put some effort into it. You guys might come up with this.
I don't even know if this is.
So this is recent, at least. Let's go like you were alive. Narrow it down for you that way. So it's guessable.
Well, some of us were alive when Roger Hunt did his thing too, but that's beside the point.
Sorry.
That's beside the point.
Speak for yourself.
What year was that?
66.
No. Thank God I'm not that old. Sorry.
Yeah. Shut up.
I would have loved when he was like, I was born in 67.
I watched the moon landing and my wife wasn't born yet. Let's put it that way. So,
well done by you.
Anyway,
Victor, shoot a guess.
I'm trying to think. 2000. So it would have been 2014. 2014 Argentina over Germany. Was Maxi Rodriguez? No, I don't think Maxi's on that team. Maxi
Argentina
Rodriguez
never won the World Cup. Argentina hasn't won the World Cup.
Oh, Germany won that match. All right, so flip it would be Emery Can on that team versus Maxi Rodriguez. I don't think a timeline matches up for either of those players, but that's the only guess I have.
What was the guess again? I'm sorry.
It would have been Emery Can on the German team.
That's some bullshit right there by Alan.
Yeah, it's not the right answer, but
it's not the right answer. What do you have, Gally?
So no, I was gonna say that's some bullshit right there by Alan. because I was actually about to question, is it the 2010 Spanish team? But I thought that had 2 Liverpool players. So I thought that had Fernando Torres and Reina.
2 players were on the squad. 1 only appeared in the final.
See?
So that would be Fernando Torres.
That would be Fernando Torres. Correct, for Spain. Congratulations.
Dude, Gally
Now-
has like this is gonna be like a Disney
See,
movie.
I was
Gally
gonna
has
have-
gotten smarter ever
I
since.
was going to have sound effects all ready to go with this too, and and I
That's
have
what happens
applause
when you
tonight.
bump your head. You have a fucking
Now,
slip and
okay,
fall on the
now,
floor.
the bonus question: who did he defeat? Which Liverpool teammate did he defeat? Who did?
Yeah.
who
Sure,
did-
Alan, you can have an assist.
Ella wants an assist
Fucking-
for getting.
I get
ready to
one
go.
goddamn trivia question right in fucking a year and a half, and the son of a bitch wants to take credit for jumping the shark. Hey, Alan, you didn't. Oh, you did say greetings. Damn it. We love you, Alan. Let me think here. I don't even know. I can't even remember who they beat in 2010.
Yeah, so that's the
One-
part I couldn't get either. I couldn't remember who they
1-0
played.
versus the Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
Come on, people, it's there now. It's a slam dunk now. Come on,
Wait,
Bickler.
what? Yeah.
Dutch Liverpool player.
Well, it's like Van Dijk would have been 8. So was Dirk out on that team?
There you go.
It was
There
Dirk
you
Kuyt.
go.
Uh,
God, this was like
Your guy.
Yep.
I forgot Dirk Kuyt made it all the way to the final with that team,
Yep.
and he played in the final, right? That's
And
what
he
you're
played
saying,
in-
Yeah.
He played in the final. Yep. Dear
right? Because Reina was
Mohammed,
sitting. Reina was
Yep.
sitting behind Casilla, right?
right? He
Casilla started.
didn't have any minutes in the whole World Cup. Reina didn't have any minutes.
It'll be the
Dietmar-
last time I ever cheer for Fernando Torres' name coming out of my
Yeah.
fucking mouth about Liverpool.
And you never know. We might have Ibra Konate may just get in there if they decide to play him, which is not likely, and France makes it. But he could finally become number 5. Lorvan lost to France last World Cup, and then Dietmar Hamm in Germany, they lost 0-2 to Brazil in 2002. Those are the only 4 other players.
Didi Harmon didn't win it.
Nope.
Damn.
They lost
It's
0-2 to
BJ
they
stat
lost
guy over
they
here.
lost they lost to Brazil.
That was definitely a good one, BJ. Thanks
There
a
we
lot,
go.
man.
That's a
You
good
got him
question.
baffled again.
There
Take
you
it
go.
easy. Have a great week.
See you next week.
I'll take a third of it. I'm fine with that.
I'm telling you, Gally, after banging the head, has become a lot smarter. Like the other, I'm telling you, this is like a Disney movie waiting to happen. Like the other 50%.
It's a scene
of the
from
players
Good Will
are
Hunting where
like
he's just
an
standing in front of the chalkboard with the numbers.
That's right. I solved it. It's like- okay, so let's see if we can solve some Liverpool problems while we're all a lot smarter over here. So
0.0 chance.
yeah, I know, right? So let's go. Obviously, the boys are finally back in action, and we kind of like talked about this before about this whole Dubai Cup and stuff like that. Obviously, it's preseason, but so let me ask you this, Gally. Even though it is preseason, it's not like your usual garden variety preseason where you kind of watch and you get the young kids in there and you're kind of like waiting more for getting in game shape and things like that, whereas this is a lot more imminent. I mean, this is a preseason, but they're going to start playing again in like 10 days. So do you watch the games any differently, or are you just like don't freaking get injured?
Well, yeah, that's how I like. I was looking at this warm weather trip as like a way to kind of get the squad back together, bring some of the guys back in that maybe were, out on holiday or given a little bit of a break. No injuries, a little bit of form, and just show us that we can hit the ground running. And, we show up and the guy we're all excited to have back gets hurt. They go out on the pitch and they take off the kid everyone's so excited to play the second half of the year and all the growth he's going to have. And Elliott comes off with a precaution. From what I read, I had to work Sunday morning. I was not able to watch the match. I listened to a little bit of it on kind of like my phone in the background. Didn't sound like it was the sharpest of performances. Sounded like the goals were all pretty soft and kind of weak in Kelleher's standpoint. And, what a kick in the nuts. You lose a match 3-1 and then somehow they send you to penalties and you lose that too.
Yeah, that format is just so
Yeah.
stupid. It was just like, you know what? This is not going to be exciting. Why don't we do penalty kicks too? That'll be exciting.
Game could be
Yeah, it was
9-0. We're still. You could show up at
Well, like-
Southampton and get the fucking Hasselholt treatment, lose 9-0, then win the PK shootout. What the bleep is that? You get 3 points for a win and 1 for a penalty draw. What?
What do you do when you've lost twice? I mean, where do you go from there? You're like, all right, we're back. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
I thought they
Yeah,
were just going to
exactly.
like play horse or something afterwards, or like a 3-point.
Yeah,
shooting
exactly.
contest.
Maybe you know what? We should have had Jamie send him the message. They could have done the fucking crossbar challenge for a half an hour. That's what we could have done. Christ.
Yeah, it was just like an odd
Penalties.
ordeal. And obviously, you know, like I think when we talked about this a couple of weeks back, I was more at the time we didn't know about Jota and Diaz and which one was going to be back and stuff like that. And, you know, like then we found out Diaz is definitely going to be back. And I mean, it was really more about seeing if he's going to be ready or not, Bickler. And now we find out that he's not going to be back till March. And anytime you hear that, you almost feel like he's probably not going to be back till April, May at best, is the way I look at that now. What do you think of the preseason concept so far? How concerned are you that, you know, we were kind of waiting? I mean, let's face it, he was our best player out on the pitch. I mean, you know, after Alisson, who's in goal, he was probably our best player on the pitch for the longest time before we lost him. It's almost like we forgot about him a little bit because of Nunez and him trying to get worked in and stuff like that. But it's like a huge loss.
huge. I mean, I think 85% of what I was excited about going into the second half of the season was having a healthy Luis Diaz, who before the injury had been our best player for over a year. Like, he stepped in as a new signing, who was immediately the best guy on the pitch, single-handedly drug us across the line last year. And, like, yeah, it's a huge loss. Like, it's a big one. And I think the big concern, I think it's even worse because for me, it's like, man, what is this going to look like? Are we ever going to get the same player back now when you're dealing with that type of a knee injury? So, I don't know. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a real gut punch. And the only thing that you can hope on is, like, you know, there's lots of tasty transfer talk. So, you know, a couple of those things coming good, even if it's summertime, like, at least give us something here. Give us something.
Yeah, it's almost like you're looking for some kind of a silver lining. I mean, that whole Elliott thing did not look good either. They had that mini break, and, you know, Klopp was like asking him and talking to him then. I'm assuming he felt something. Whenever they say it's a knock and it's precautionary and stuff like that, I always worry because we've seen some of these knocks turn out to be something a lot more serious that will be like, it's a knock, he'll be out for like 3 weeks or something like that, and that we can't afford that right now. Especially, I mean, here's the thing, and I want to get to that next, all these like rumors and different names being thrown around all over the place. You know, even if we sign any of those guys, you know, by the time they get acclimated and Klopp trusts them and you put him in there, it might be a while, at least for most of the names mentioned. But let's start with that. Bickler, since you brought it up, let's start with you. Obviously, Bellingham is going to be on the top of the list, but out of all these other names you are hearing, which one do you think is like the biggest one that we got to seal the deal?
Oh, Bellingham 100% is the biggest one we've got to seal. I mean, just because he is, you know, no transfer is a sure thing, right? But he's a sure thing. Like, I'll just put it that way. And, like, I just think if you're looking at him in his totality, he's absolutely, like, high risk, low reward all the way through. I mean, I think he's done things like his behavior during the England semi when I was like, basically he was the captain inside that team without being the captain at 19 years old. Like, if you look at what happened when Harry Kane skied that PK, he was the first guy to Harry Kane and, like, picked his chin up and was, like, in his ear. Like, I mean, I just think he's got a maturity, like, well beyond his years. I think from a playing standpoint, he's got this really incredible traditional box-to-box ability in, like, a new school body, which is really crazy to see. I think he's like this just very, really unusual throwback player in, like, a new school body, and that's really, really cool. And in terms of, like, watching his dynamic on the pitch, I think he is, like, a 10 out of 10. I think just to be in the position to sign him you have to consider yourself incredibly fortunate. I mean, he's only going to go – a player like that's only going to go to a couple of clubs in the entire world. And to be at the top of his list is something that I think – for me, it's like just be grateful you're in that position and make it happen.
But after Bellingham, Gally, who's one name that gets Gally excited?
I always pronounce the guy's name on bad or however the hell you pronounce it. The Moroccan midfielder that should be available for about $30 million from Fiorentina. I think that's the type of player you should be looking at right now because I think he does a job that we need in our midfield, and we need it whether we sign Bellingham or not, by the way. That's a guy that I think actually brings a lot. I think he's going to have an inflated stock, but I also think he's actually going to get moved in January because his price is never going to be higher than coming off being the best player for Morocco during this World Cup. And I mean, at some point during the show, we should spend a minute or two talking about what Morocco's doing because it's absolutely baffling what them and Croatia are doing. But I really like him. I like the idea of him. I know everyone's excited about Enzo Fernandez. I think Enzo Fernandez is an amazing young player. Do I think there's any chance that Liverpool has a pre-agreement of spending over $100 million with any player not named Bellingham? I fucking don't. That's just stupid. They only have so much money. If you told me like we were sold and they're going to spend $300 million this summer, I'd say, well, you could do worse than spending 150 on each of them. But to Paul's point, we talked a lot about the Portuguese players. Paul made a point about the Vieira kid going to Arsenal and just not being big enough for the Premier League. And though he's had some flashes, he can't really displace anyone in their midfield. And this Fernandez kid literally looks smaller than the Vieira kid. So this idea that kid's going to come to the Premier League and just walk into an engine room midfield just doesn't make sense to me. I think Liverpool has more need than that. For all the talk about midfielders, I think Paul's point earlier is this side probably has to go buy an attacker. Because if Diaz and Jota are both out until spring, there's a chance with any setback, one of the two of them doesn't come back. And we've seen already, like, Mo can play every minute of every game. Bobby and Nunez can't. Physically, they can't. I don't think their skill sets will keep up. And, I'm sorry. I know how we love to poke fun, but Carvalho's not an answer yet. He's too young. Jones isn't an answer up top. As much as we like Elliott up top, he's probably too slow to play wide in our formation or offensive setup. So, I feel like there's an attacker out there that's needed. So maybe you take a run at the Sarr kid from Watford and see if you can pry him out of there. And, maybe you go out and you try to sign a lower level attacker in the Premier League. I mean, I think they need a player who can come in and be fourth, fifth option right now, like in January and play.
And that's the thing, that was an area that we felt like we had quality depth in, but Jota as of now is February and Diaz as of now is now March, whereas, it was going to be now. So I don't know how much we can trust Jota to be coming in February and like hitting the ground running. So yeah, that definitely leaves a gap because there's a ton of games between now and by the time these guys come back. So that's kind of like brings me to Bickler, like, where do you prioritize? Before it felt like all we need is midfielders, but now it feels like, aside from the back line where we have the depth, it feels like we need people throughout. And
it almost shifts your short-term need.
We can't really rely on Jones and Carvalho and stuff.
I think the long-term need is midfield, and it's been the long-term need for a while now. But I think the short-term need now is depth up front. Just considering the injuries in the actual roster itself. I mean, I don't know if there's not smoke or I don't know if there's not fire to the smoke about the Kudus kid out of Ajax being interested in a move in us being linked with him. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I would be particularly happy with that because he has experience on the right side. Yeah. So we've gotten away with primarily left-sided attackers being flopped over. And that number just got heavier with the fact that we found out that Nunez, preferably kind of plays off that shoulder. So he shifts left too. I would love a kid like that. But yeah, I think the short-term need is to find another attacker. I think you're right. And I mean, I think we'll see somebody in the mids. I still think we'll see a midfield signing in January.
And I do like the guy is saying the Amrabat name, but that's more like a Fabinho, somebody to relieve Fabinho more than anything else. I don't see him playing unless we do like a double pivot or something like that.
Well, that's kind of where we've started to move to. Yeah. And I think in some ways, the only silver lining about the Diaz thing is that we had altered our formation to basically play 2 up top so we could fit Nunez and Mo. And some people were saying, like, well, what happens when Diaz is fit and you still want Nunez playing and Mo's playing and you want Bobby playing behind him? So maybe the answer is we just play this, whatever you want to call it, 4-2-2, 4-2-3-1, whatever it is, where you're basically playing with Nunez kind of off center, off left, and Mo kind of operating through the middle and scoring the goals. And you play with Bobby behind him and you try to piece that together. No one's going to want to hear this, but, we all joked with Keita will never put on the uniform again. You almost need Naby Keita to play if you don't go buy players, because Naby Keita can offer some things going forward and playing in attack-minded roles, even out of the midfield. And let's be honest, we don't have many midfielders with a goal in their boots. He's got a goal in him when he wants to. The problem is does he want to play and will he play for this club? But I just feel like some of those sell Ox, sell Keita, these plans have to be scrapped because it's basically mission critical, all hands on deck right now, which is really, really scary because we were all so positive going into the break.
Positive of the moving out. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'm glad you brought up Keita because I was going to ask you guys about that. I mean, we kind of assumed we would not see him around again. So Bickler, do you think this is more about kind of like what Galley's saying? He's going to be needed and it was in the plans all along, despite what we thought? Or are we, we were talking about it this morning with the coffee show with Mateusz. Is it more about putting him out there to show that everybody who's in the market for a midfielder knows he's alive and well and kicking and he can play? I mean, the way Klopp talked about it was more like we're going to need him and this is good to get him minutes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was surprised that they actually trotted him out there. I didn't think we'd see him. And so the fact that they did show him out and he did get out there, to me, indicates that we're planning on using him as emergency depth. And that's a really scary thing just because I think, at one time, Naby was like 3rd or 4th best midfielder available, like for a run about a year and a half ago. And I think the problem with that is his ability is that he could provide us that, but I don't want to put my trust or hope in a player that has that ability but has been emotionally checked out from this club for probably going on 2 years now. And that's the really scary thing. And that's, like Jurgen makes this big show about like, well, if we don't want to play, we only want players that want to play here. And maybe the logistics haven't been worked out on how to get him out and make business sense for Liverpool. But if Jurgen's going to stand by what he preaches in that, like we needed to have sorted this long ago and get him out because it's toxic for him as an individual and it's toxic for the club. And I know I went off on a tangent there, but the fact that we are looking like we're going to use him for depth is a scary spot to be in.
To be fair, though, I mean, do we really know, or are we just going by the rumors and the fact that, like stuff that his agent throws out there in terms of him not being happy and all that kind of stuff? I mean, he has to know. I mean, he wasn't getting playing time because he was injured.
Well, he was left off the Champions League roster. He
was injured.
Before the season started in August, Jurgen Klopp told him, "You're not part of my Champions League plans." That to me lets you know the manager doesn't want you as part of his plans. He had a chance to put him on the roster. I mean, he put kids on the roster. He left him and Ox off. It was clear. To me, that was a writing on the wall. Go find another club. And he couldn't find anyone to make a reasonable offer because everybody knows he's basically available for free at the end of the season. And Liverpool loves letting people leave for free. So, and there'll be people out there, right? Oh, give young Ben Doak a game. He looked great. It's one thing to look great against backups in Dubai, okay? Like, he didn't look great against Premier League level talent. He's not, remember how unready Harvey Elliott was to play at the senior level when he got those couple Carabao Cup games at the beginning before we sent him out on loan? He literally looked like a little kid with like a chicken with his head cut off, running around in circles. And I think Ben Doak would look the exact same way. We buy all these young players and everyone falls in love with them because they see them play in these preseason friendlies. We need grown men to play, and we need grown men to fill in roles. And as much as I'm with Paul, I don't think Nabby wants to be here, and I was a Nabby apologist. Unfortunately, he is a full-grown man in a full-grown body getting a full-grown wage, and you got to use him. Because right now, as he hasn't kicked the ball competitively since the Community Shield, I believe, right? Not once. And I'd still argue he's our fourth best midfielder right now, fully fit.
If fully fit, I mean, you got to figure he's very much in that rotation and probably, starting a lot of games because obviously, I mean, and that's mainly because the other people you consider as starters, maybe as like Thiago and Hendo and stuff, you're not going to be able to trot them out there every freaking game. So you are going to need to rotate that spot. So a couple of questions here. So over what we talked about. Bickler. For Fabinho, when we talked about getting, like, if we're getting Amrabat, if we're doing like a double pivot action there, are you concerned about how Fabinho performed when we play like that? Is it just pure form at the time, or is it because he's not used to the system or works well in that system as opposed to being more used to being the guy in terms of being the defensive midfielder?
I mean, I would feel better about answering that question if I hadn't been concerned about Fabinho all year. So, like, the fact that, like, I've been concerned about him all year makes me feel like it may not be a system issue as much as it is just a form issue, and hopefully not a wear and tear age issue. Because, like, I mean, he just looks broken. Like, he just looks absolutely broken, and, like, he doesn't the sort of elegance and grace that, like, was in his game isn't there. And there's no willingness to hit that long diagonal. He's not taking anything from range. He's, like, getting beat to 50-50s, like, just things that are very uncharacteristic physically of him. So I don't think it has to do, and I don't know how anyone can make the argument it has to do with tactics right now in the double, because I mean, the struggle has been for so long, double pivot or no double pivot. I don't know. You guys?
Gally, what do you think? You think it's form, or you think he's better suited for, because that's a different, I mean, it's a different ordeal. It's a different situation. I know we don't play with the traditional, like, three midfield anyway, but still there's a difference between being the defensive midfield as opposed to playing that double pivot, because the roles kind of change.
Do I think he looks a little bit lost, like he's thinking about where he's supposed to be at moments out there this season in the new formation? I do.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's to your point, right? That's a legitimate thing. There are certain skill sets and mindsets, and mentally they all knew in the 4-3-3 that we ran for 5 years straight. Every player knew their job and where they were supposed to be in every instance of every moment. And that's why they just always never seemed to ever be out of position, right? And they were like a machine. And I think when you start to tweak that, it changes it. All that said, I think to Paul's point, I started talking on this podcast with you guys, late February, early March, talking about how Fabinho looked like a shell of himself. How I felt that Fabinho down the stretch last year was just getting beaten all over the ball. I mean, I know he was coming off an injury. He was so poor in the Champions League final. You would never, ever say that man is a world-class talent. And I don't know that we've seen it come back since. Not once. I haven't seen a performance. And, him making the Brazil squad was great. He was never getting on that pitch. He was literally like third or fourth on the depth chart in defensive midfielders for them. There are a lot of talk that this might be Fabinho's last year here, and they may be able to sell him and get a price. They may go out and buy a player, even in addition to Bellingham. People were all up in arms because people said, I would sign Declan Rice tomorrow. And I know I'm someone who likes Declan Rice's attributes and skill sets, and other people don't. But this is the thing. Right now, Fabinho doesn't look like he should be playing at week in and week out at a superpower club. He's not finding his way anywhere near the PSG starting lineup. He's not breaking it into Madrid's starting lineup. And let's be totally honest. Right now, he wouldn't start over Casemiro for United.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
True.
I mean, you compare. I mean, obviously,
True.
he's behind Casemiro in the Brazilian national team, so I guess that.
I'm just.
Yeah,
it's
so
not a knock. I'm being real. I think we're seeing a diminishing of his skills. I think form has been a big key, but it was happening before we made the formation change, and I think that's I think that might be giving him a little too much of a pass. We're going on 9 months of him being off form to the point where he's been questioned basically consistently the entire time. And I think there has to be more to that.
I think that's harsh, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, he had some games where he was not good, but I mean, this year compared to especially end of last year, I think it's still night and day. And I mean, to me, at least, especially because of his position, his performance relies a lot on the other two midfielders too. And let's face it, we've had some weaknesses there and tired legs there. And I think it was tired legs throughout that midfield, but especially for the guy who is almost in some ways the sweeper, if you will, of the midfield there. Obviously, the other guy's form is, and if they're a step behind, it affects, what Fabinho is going to do because he can't press up that way. Do you agree to that, Bigler, in terms of his form? I mean, do you think he was just as bad last year or his diminishing since last year, like February or so, Gally was saying?
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, it's more of a concern of hopefully it is an issue of form, because form, basically insinuates that there's some upward mobility or at least a ceiling that you can hit. And if this is just him physically falling off the cliff from a performance level, I think that's worst case scenario for everybody. That's not how we want to remember Fabinho. At least that's not how I want to remember Fabinho. And I think the sad thing is from a club standpoint, there's nobody sitting there to push him. In terms of there's no 24-year-old kid who could step in and this be his moment. Because that kind of competition is best for both players in that situation. And it's best and most importantly, it makes the decision for the manager easy from not only a physical decision point, but from an optics standpoint for both the player and the club.
Yeah, and I think that's why that move is a very good move, and it's a very possible one, like you're saying, Gally, because even at 30 million, that's not a bad deal for a 26-year-old midfielder who looks like they have the tool set. And I know it's kind of totally different to watch him here, and I'm sure they're not watching TV and they're like, that guy looks good, look him up, and then buying it. I'm sure there's all kinds of scouting reports on him already, or if they were monitoring them already and stuff, we're not just getting it off of the TV. But to me, as I watched him, obviously after rumors started watching him a lot more closely, he does have that skill set. I think one thing that and we'll go to the World Cup next, but one thing I was impressed with Morocco was, especially after seeing what Portugal was able to do with their counter press in the previous games, how Morocco was able to come out of that. And Amrabat, he's a big part of that because he's very calm on the ball. So I was hoping, as I saw that, I'm like, okay, he can cope with a Premier League pace because you have Fernandes and Silva and these guys doing that pressuring at the regular Premier League speed. So it's definitely good to see. So I think the biggest thing is a lot of the question marks that we would normally have, right? Going into a January thing and, the weaknesses we have, injuries and all that kind of stuff. This whole FSG thing and, club being for sale is making it, throwing yet another curveball in there. So as a gut feeling though, Bickler, do you think this would be something where they would spend the money? And if they're going to sell, work it into the price, if you will, because obviously investment in the squad, or is it a bigger reason for them to sit on their hands and say, well, we don't want to spend any money if we're not going to be here for it?
No, I think it's critical for them to secure Champions League qualification.
I'm 100% with that.
Yeah, from a sale standpoint or even a suitor standpoint for partial sale. I think it's and if they don't, I think the evaluation of the club takes a hit. They don't want. So I think they're going to spend. I think they'll spend in January. It'll be sensible. They're not going to do anything crazy, but like I think that from what we're used to seeing, I think they'll be relatively aggressive if they have the right player and the right deal there. I think they'll be aggressive with it.
You too, Yali, you were saying that you're probably gonna you see them more investing it to get more money out of in the long term.
I do. I think these guys are really, really smart businessmen. Whether they're looking to get partial investment to be able to compete at a higher level, they have the money. If they need it to spend it, they have the money. Everyone gets all up in arms about the Red Sox stuff and what they're spending and not, right? And they'd go years and they'd be like, we can't spend money. We're not spending money. We have a budget. And then they'd have like an embarrassment or they'd fall off something and they'd be like, you know what, we better go sign a player. And then they'd find $350 million to sign Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez in the same summer. Or, they couldn't pay John Lester $120 million and they spent $200 on David Price. They find money when they want to spend the money. And I expect them to find the money for Bellingham. I really do. And I could see them spending $30 million on a midfielder, $20-30 million on a fourth or fifth attacker. Because let's be honest, they never replaced Origi or Taki. They just let two guys leave that scored 25 goals combined and acted like they didn't need them. And I think they're going to do everything in their power to have the Bellingham deal done by January, but have him delivered in the summer. And I think it's in their best interest to do it. And I think part of it is they think they can sell this for a higher amount if they know they have Jude Bellingham for 15 years. Like, what has just happened in the last month is he went from being a top English talent to being the biggest talent in world football. Like, he's the number one guy right now in all of world football. I honestly think, if you rated him as a commodity, he'd be higher than Mbappe because you have to pay Mbappe $200 million a year.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with his mother. And you have to deal with the entourage and the issues. No, but Mbappe comes with problems, and this kid comes with his he comes with his parents. Like they live together in Dortmund. His parents moved there. They're they're a real nucleus. And I think that you're buying more than a player in Bellingham. I jokingly said it in Discord. My negotiation would start with 130. No, we want 150. 140 and Keita. Nope. 150 and Keita. You can have Keita now.
And Ox.
Oh, you want the Ox? Hell. You can have the social media girlfriend too.
I don't think Dortmund is going into that ordeal. Yeah, I mean, the problem with that, and I really would. I mean, Bellingham, would be like the number one target. And then honestly, I know Mbappe looks amazing, but just because of the reasons you talked about and the ego that comes with it, and compared to, Bellingham's overall mood and what Victor was talking about in terms of the leadership and how he carries himself. If they said, hey, pick one, I think I would pick Bellingham just because of those reasons alone. Because for the long term, you definitely see a lot less problems coming out of that area.
He can be the face when Jordan Henderson leaves. He can be your next decade of leadership.
Yeah. Oh, he would literally be the captain of the team the moment Henderson walked away. I know everyone loves Trent and Scouser among us. Paul said it earlier. He was basically a de facto captain on the pitch with Kane and Henderson the whole time in this World Cup. The guy has captained Dortmund in the Champions League at 19 years old. He is clearly a leader of men. You can see the way the players gravitate to him. You can see how excited they are to play with him. And I know Ian Parkinson mentions in the comments, Bellingham and Rice. And I jokingly said it, but I'd be honest. If you told me I could sign two players right now, I would sign Declan Rice and Bellingham because to me, they look like a dynamic midfield who knows how to play well together. And England was at its best, as good as Henderson was, and it was great for him. England was actually at its best on the pitch in preparing for the World Cup when it was Rice and Bellingham and Mount. So give me my perfect world. Go sign me them 3 Englishmen and put them in my midfield for the next 15 years. I think we would do really, really, really well. Not that it's going to happen because it would cost $350 million.
Is it even what Ian's saying? You think realistic? Bellingham and Rice? That's like Dubai Cup final and penalties.
Here's the thing:
both worlds.
I don't think it's realistic because I think that's $250 million on midfielders, and I haven't seen them spend $50 million on a midfielder since Keita 7 years ago. So, I'll believe it when I see it. The Bellingham thing is one of those. There seems to be too much smoke to not have any fire, and he's saying it. His people are saying it. Hell, the Borussia Dortmund freaking head of player personnel said, if I could pick anywhere in the world, I'd send him to Liverpool. Like, it's almost like, hey, Real Madrid, go bleep yourself, okay? That's what we think of you. And we do, by the way.
Yes, we do. If Bellingham comes to Anfield, Rice would follow if the money is. I mean, if the money is there, I think everybody would follow Bellingham over there. But I think I agree with Gally there. I don't think there is money for both into the midfield. I mean, I just don't see them spending that much on 2 players to the midfield. Would it be awesome? Yes. Do I see it happening? No. But so before we head out, let's talk a little bit of the World Cup over here. I will pull it up a little bit over here. I mean, in terms of predictions in this World Cup, I don't know if you guys heard, but I'll put it over here so you guys can. I'll throw the ticker out there. The ticker is out there. But I'll be honest, man, I was talking about it this morning. It came down to between like me and Angie basically on that one. And if Netherlands won, like I think she would have won the whole thing. If Argentina won, I would. But towards the end, I was like, you know what? Screw this pool. I'll change the ticker if I have to. I really wanted Netherlands to beat that game just because of Argentina and how that team carries itself and stuff like that. But how surprised are you? Obviously, Bickler, Morocco, and Croatia in the semifinals. Even the number one predictor over here didn't see that coming. So, you do the math.
I had this side of the bracket destroyed when you made me pick last time. So it was pretty I think I had Spain going through on that side. Obviously didn't work out so well. I got that one. Yeah, Croatia was not a shock to me. I think they have a real identity from floor to ceiling in how they play. And they're gonna drag it into the gutter. And they're going to punch it out in the midfield with some sorcerer, Modric, who just doesn't age. Like, that is complete witchcraft, what he's done to his body.
It has to be. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, he looks the exact same. Dude, so I saw him at a Spurs match. Like, it feels like decades ago. He looks the same.
It was.
He looks exactly the same.
He probably runs more, like somehow.
It's ridiculous. And I mean, they're just super gritty. They all their dudes look the same too, like up front, like up top. They're all like shaved head, look like they've been through they missed 4th and 5th grade because their house is on fire and being bombed. Like, dude, they're gritty. I love the way they play because it's just real blue collar football.
And that's one thing I would say, like, compared to, you look at these 2 stories, Gally, with Morocco and them. While Morocco, I've been impressed, and obviously they've kind of like overperformed, and I've been impressed how they come out of the press sometimes and some of the things they do. But you look at the 2 teams and how they play overall. I mean, you can tell Croatia can really take on anybody, whereas Morocco is more, let's face it, they got that goal through a goalie error. Not to mention the guy jumped like 180 feet or something crazy like that to get to that header.
He got that high.
I mean, that's ridiculous. But, then again, if the goalie does not jump behind them, he's probably getting to that before the high jumping guy and stuff like that. But let me ask you this way, for example, if Morocco and Croatia were in the semifinals, who would you pick to advance if they were playing each other?
Honestly, right now, I think I would pick Morocco because I think partially because I think Croatia has to do it with a little bit of witchcraft. Like let's be honest, guys. Croatia got the late goal against Japan, or we would have been railing on what a great story it was for Japan to get all the way to the quarterfinals and play against Brazil. They took the lead. They were the better side in that match. I can't stand Brazil. I picked them to win it because I actually thought they had the most talent and the best goalkeeper. And a lot of times in the World Cup, it never gets talked about. The team that has the best goalie often wins the World Cup. And I thought they did have the best goalie, and I think we saw it on display with the way Allison played.
Yes.
What they do is what they do in Croatia. They muck it up. As Paul said, the maestro in the midfield comes out from under the bridge. He has his little troll-like ears. He looks at people crazy, a little cross-eyed. He kicks the ball up to Perisic, and Perisic is like, yeah, Conte plays me at fullback, but I'm still a world-class winger. I'll score. And then Perisic scores. I mean, it's what he did to England when he broke their hearts in the World Cup semifinal with the 2 goals. They have strikers that don't look like they belong in Europe. Dejan Lovren starts. He's going to start a World Cup semifinal. Like, he started a World Cup final for them. It's hilarious. And they love him. And will I be shocked if they beat Argentina tomorrow? I won't. I'd be pretty shocked, I think, if they could beat France in the final, because I just think they have too much firepower. But I'm not putting anything past them. They got a country of 4 million people and 1 troll, and the troll will not age. The dude just shows up and wins. I mean, honestly, the guy is so fucking good, and he gets no plaudits either. I know he got his Ballon d'Or, but he gets no real plaudits for being like a top level world-class player. And he was that player at Spurs. There's a reason they wouldn't let him go to Chelsea when Chelsea tried to buy him for big money. And they were like, fuck no, we'll let you go do this in Madrid, but we're not going to be made to look stupid, for letting you leave here within the continent. And it was a smart move because the guy just won't stop. I think it was 5 years ago I heard he was coming to play for the Columbus Crew. Do you imagine if that guy played in this shitty league in America, what he would do to people? He would just literally break people. He'd literally touch a ball and they would just fall over. It's like witchcraft.
But you know what? At the same time, I don't know if you would be able to. We've seen some other players come over here and there's such chaos. They're like, dude, why are you even running there? You should be going over here. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
In some ways, I don't know if he would be able to do what he does. But he's one of those guys that's, kind of like Thiago. He's such a joy to watch. You can just stop, and Bobby is the same way to me, where you can kind of blur out the rest of the game and just watch what he does. And it's like, man, it's so beautiful to watch. And I think that's what he brings. And they have a really hard working midfield. That dude Brzezowski ran 10 miles. I read obviously it was 130 minutes or something, but that's a freaking lot. And that's a lot of pace with that running too. You don't get to 10 miles just jogging around the place. You got to sprint from point A to point B. So I don't know. I feel like if Croatia faced Morocco, and I would not be shocked if Croatia takes over Argentina, actually. Obviously, it's been great quarterfinals for me. I've seen Neymar in tears. I've seen Ronaldo in tears. And I'd be totally okay with seeing Messi in tears, too. I'm kind of it just annoys me how the commentary is so pro the superstar and the favorite team. But then the moment the tide turns, they act like, oh, what a great story. Shut the fuck up. You were rooting for the other guy the entire way, and it was very freaking obvious. Don't change your tone now because it's going the other way. I find it extremely annoying.
That's Fox all day, though, right? Isn't that Fox all day? I mean, anyone who watches.
That's anybody, though, man. Anything you listen to, they ride the favorite. They're like, how amazing is this? How amazing is this? And then they were like, oh, how amazing is this surprise? It's just pick a lane, stick to it. I know it's a very superstar-driven world we live in, but Jesus, man. And that's why I was totally content with I'd rather have Netherlands, Croatia, Morocco, and I know there's still Mbappe in there. You have to have somebody go through on the other side of the bracket, but it's just
I'm conflicted with Messi.
What?
I conflicted with Messi because I was like, oh, this would be a good story. He goes out on top. He seems to have a little bit more of the humility that we don't get with Ronaldo. So, that's why, to me, he's a little bit more likable. He seems like he does genuinely care about other people on the pitch besides him. But then he has this game versus the Netherlands where he just gets this, I'm like, all right, Michael Jordan. He just had that nasty MJ streak where he just about it. He just kind of started going after people, and he was like, "Well, They were talking before the match. I'm like, dude, everybody talks up before every match. Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, talking shit to Van Gaal after the match, like telling him that he's not a class manager. And I used to have respect for you. He played for him for like 4 years. He wrote an opine essay when he got cancer about how he was such a great man and helped him during like his formidable years. And other than Pep, no manager helped him with tactics. Then he's like, and they just hoof the ball forward. And then they're kicking me when I'm down. And they wanted me sent off. You know why they wanted you sent off? Because you cheated the fucking game. Because you got a blatant handball that broke up the play. And if any of us do it, we get a yellow immediately. But you're Lionel Messi. And then you kick a ball into an opponent's dugout. Do you know that by rule, they could have gave him a red card for it? Not a yellow.
They should have.
It's a straight red card.
And honestly, Van Dijk could have seen a red card for what he did as well.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm not.
And that's why I think they picked each other up. They were like, "Hey, I think we got away with it. Let's go. Take the yellows and get out of here."
It's something about the last 2 or 3 years. I think the whole thing where we all had to feel bad for Lionel Messi that he had to leave Barcelona because he refused to not have $125 to $150 million record contract anymore. Like, he didn't have to leave Barcelona. He didn't want to take less money. So he left Barcelona. And then we were all supposed to feel bad for him. We were all supposed to like be woe is me Messi. This is a guy who got no shit for missing a penalty in a World Cup final. He had the World Cup on his foot and he kicked the ball up into God knows where. And, we all had fun making fun of Kane, right? We've all seen the memes. Ain't nobody making memes about, Messi getting 3 in Brazil when he kicked the ball that still hasn't landed yet. And he skated all these years by being the opposite of Ronaldo. And now Ronaldo has gone so far to the dark side that he's literally like beyond Darth Vader. Like, he's made Darth Vader look like a good guy at this point. Like, there's nothing Ronaldo could do. It almost is allowing Messi, even in today's new like villain world, to just completely skate under the radar. So I want no part of him winning. And you know the number one reason is he is maybe the greatest footballer of the last 25, 30 years. But as long as he hasn't won the World Cup, he'll never be the greatest Argentinian player of all time. And you can make that argument if he does. And honestly, for me, I'd rather watch Maradona play every day of the week and twice on Sundays because he was entertaining. And I think at times Messi has every skill. And that pass he made was witchcraft in itself. How he even knew that there was a lane there to feed that ball through against the Dutch was it was classic Messi. But so was everything you saw the second half and more importantly in the post-match press conference. And, we say it before. Someone said it's a team game. This has been all about stars. And if there's been one thing for me is the stars of this World Cup have been the smaller countries making these big runs, whether it's Morocco, whether it's Croatia, whether it's Japan winning that group and knocking out Germany. These were great stories in this World Cup. Yet we're going to remember it for Messi being an asshole, Ronaldo crying, and Mbappe posing.
And Neymar crying. I remember that.
And then posing. And Neymar, no one's going to actually remember Neymar, though.
Oh,
that's the thing. This World Cup is actually, for me, is the world of football turning the page on Neymar. Because to be honest, Richarlison, Paqueta were both head and shoulders better than him on Brazil.
Well, I think,
the body of the work.
The thing with Messi is, I think, he's always been like this. I mean, we saw him when they lost 4-0 in Anfield. I mean, he's always like a lot more sneaky about his douchiness in the background. So he kind of has gone away with it. Whereas almost like Ronaldo is proud of his douchiness and the way he carries himself. He looks a lot more like, cocky and everything like that. Whereas Messi is like, I know I'm great. I'm just playing over here. He carries himself like that, but in the background, he does all kinds of shady stuff. And I just seen that Argentina game afterwards. I was like, man, I hope they do not win. And that's the same thing with Neymar. They played that game. It's an unbelievable team goal. If you look at that goal that Brazil scored, it's like 2 give and goes with Neymar and stuff. But it suddenly became, and I think he even said, one of the greatest all-time, like single efforts or something like that. I'm like, he did 2 give and goes. What? Like, there are other people involved in that equation. And that's why I think, but that's any media. I think they try to like I say, I think the whole media is driven by superstars, so they kind of have to put that spin on every goddamn thing, which is kind of like annoying to watch. And that's why, like you're saying, Gally, you do find most people rooting for Croatia and stuff. One, they're underdogs, and two, and kind of like Ian saying, they're more of a team. I mean, we talked about Modric and stuff like that, but there's like a lot of like role players in there. And there are some players who are not world class, but that team is still playing like that because they're playing as a team. But before we go, what was that?
Di Maria. There's Di Maria and Dybala and Otamendi. I mean, they're not just Messi and a bunch of other guys. They're a bunch of twats and Messi. Like the whole team is littered with a bunch of jerks. Like the Argentinian side.
Yeah, Portugal. There's a couple of teams that are like that. But let's go do some predictions over here. I'll throw this on there. Should give my predictions some credibility, I guess, moving forward. But Bickler, you did not join this, so I guess you can be exempt from the ticker. But who do you see in the final? Well, actually, by the time we meet next Monday, we will be talking about a new winner. Who will that new winner be, and who will they beat in the final, Paul?
It's going to be the winner I've had this entire time. I still think they're the best just because of like their defensive depth in their midfield. I've got France in this thing. I think – oh, man, this is tough. Argentina-Croatia is, for me, honestly, a coin flip. I'll go Argentina.
The brain over here, I think, is more than anything else.
Yeah, I'll go Argentina here. I think they've got too much offensive firepower. I think they'll find a way versus Croatia. And I think if Croatia gets behind, it's going to be real tough for them. They might be able to – I mean, Croatia could find an equalizer, take it to pens, and I think they win pens. I think Croatia wins pens versus anybody in the world. So, I mean, yeah, that's where I get caught with this 50-50. But I think Argentina on the scale of it, I think I would have to go with them if I was forced to pick, but that's a tough one.
How about you, Gally? Oh, let me throw this thing over here.
Yeah, keep it rolling, please. Just remind me. I just feel like Argentina will win the match. I'm gonna go with Croatia with my heart. I will say, I think you got to have a little bit in the back of your mind. You give up 2 goals in stoppage time when all you need to do is hold on. And you give up goals. Like, I mean, they had a 2-0 lead with no time left and basically went to pen. So Argentina almost did everything they could to give Netherlands a chance. And Gakpo could have scored twice more in extra time alone, it felt like. So I think Argentina can be got at. I would love to say Morocco, but I just, I went on notice that I thought the winner of England-France was going to go on and win the World Cup, and I'm going to stand by that. I think that was the best match of the World Cup so far. I'm going to go with France as much as it makes me have to hold my nose to say it. And it'll probably be Mbappe being the star and, Hugo Lloris picking up the trophy 2 times in a row as captain of France, the first man to lift the trophy twice and still have
Gally and his Loris hate is unreal.
And have everyone in his country still as shocked as I am right now that they pulled that shit off.
I envision like a team, like an anti-Gally team coached by Scott Parker, like Loris in goal. We should make like a starting 11 that, Gally will love.
We should all make starting 11s for next year that we absolutely hate. I could go Pereira and my team.
It would definitely have Hugo Lloris in goal, and I'd probably put the armband on him because it always pisses me off when goalies are captain. And when a goalie is a captain of a national team, you really have to explain to me how the leader of a goddamn national team is the keeper. I'm sorry. It never makes sense to me. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, I
always felt like every time, because it's not, I understand if they're like a true leader of your team. And maybe that's it. Like there was a point where David De Gea didn't speak English and they made him the captain of Manchester United because ultimately he was the highest paid person there. He couldn't speak the language and he was captaining the side. Like, come on. And have you heard, look at Lloris. Does that inspire anything? It inspires.
I don't know. It inspired somebody in France. They freaking made it once and they're about to make it again. Something
I gotta say, it will be pretty impressive.
They feel bad for him. They're like, come on.
Have you ever heard him? I've never heard him speak. Anybody hear him speak? What if he has like a crazy high voice?
think he does.
Hold on.
I don't know.
Trevor says, all I'll say is I'm the last man standing with Argentina. Knowing Trevor and our episodes in the morning coffee show, he probably had him playing Serbia in the final, which did not go as planned. But yeah, I'm hoping Croatia will beat Argentina. That might be more my heart talk in there. But I had France winning this whole thing from the beginning. I thought they would play Brazil in the final. One thing I did notice, though, as they were playing England and looked like the game before Kane skied it, looked like, this game could go into overtime. You look at the bench of France, and it is not that impressive. Aside from like defense and midfield, they don't have any weapons that they can put up top to say, to change the game or bring some pace and stuff. The only player they had come on is the guy who came in, and they really don't have anybody else. So I don't know if Croatia makes it to the final, or even if it's Argentina and that game goes to overtime, I think like it goes towards the other team in terms of the advantage just because of the depth. And I know they're missing a lot of people, but that would be the only thing that would make me doubt it. But I think they beat Morocco easily, and then they beat whoever comes across. They just feel like they have like a different gear. So, and you guys know me, I hate to toot my own horn. And what do I know? But, mind you, it's pretty sad. And I think that's why it's been a great World Cup, Gally, because even
I like how you took it down for
so much stuff.
I like how you took
this
this ribbon down for like 30 seconds just so you could put it up like it hasn't been running for the last 40 minutes.
Just bring it back up and be like, so I just want to remind people, all the listeners out there, please like, subscribe.
In case you haven't seen this for the past 30 minutes.
I just want to know, are you going to send yourself an American Scouser gift package? And if you are you going to wear the shirt on the show that says, I am a winner. My name is Timuchin?
I will. I'm going to make myself a shirt number one.
Let's send this thing down to BJ to get it signed first, and then we'll send it back to you.
I will say, we criticize France's attacking options, and I totally understand that. I don't think they're as good as we maybe gave them credit. They have Dembele, they have Mbappe, and they have Giroud. They have Kingsley Coman. I don't think Didier Deschamps really cares for the player. I think he'd play more. But I will say, it might have affected things a little bit when you lose a guy like Benzema 48 hours before the tournament starts. Yeah. They might have had a little depth had Benzema been healthy, because if Benzema was healthy, they might not have played a match yet that wasn't decided by 2-3 goals. Now, at the same time, Deschamps still probably would have started Olivier Giroud, because in Deschamps' mind, Olivier Giroud is literally like, he is, the straw that stirs the drink. Because in his mind, everything good happens through that man and that like formulated hairdo. He doesn't
score goals, man. I don't know, something about that dude. He knows where to be. We were doing a live watch along, and you just knew he was going to score. And next thing you know, he's at the end of a ball scoring. It's just like
I can't believe he's their all-time leading goal scorer. That's a feat to be France's all-time leading goal scorer.
Dude, all that dude does is score, man.
Yep.
Anywhere he goes.
You can. It's one of those things where, he might not be contributing anything to the game, but how do you take him out? Because it's about.
You remember how badly they didn't want to start him at Arsenal, and he just kept scoring? Like they would put him in the 75th minute, he'd bang in two. They're like, oh.
And then they let him go, and they let him leave. He went to Chelsea on the free, and they're like, we're gonna sign this guy. We're gonna sign this guy. And then when fucking rubber hit the road, they'd put in Olivier Giroud and he'd score game-winning goals.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, just send it into the box. I got it. Yeah.
Dude goes to AC Milan. They win the league. Everyone's like, Ibra. And you look at the numbers. Giroud had like more goals and assists.
But next Monday, we'll be back. I think we're all guessing France over here. We'll see if they are the winner, and we'll be full force back into our boys. Kind of like looking forward to that as well. As much fun as this World Cup has been, and we kind of knew once the games would start, the conversation would go totally to stuff on the field, which we didn't even get to the U.S. National team draft. I'm sure Gally could go on like 10 minutes on that alone. But I mean, it's kind of like has been like a fun cup to watch. I think because of a lot of surprising teams, and I think we're going to see more and more of that as the Premier League and stuff like that have so many of these guys that are in their national teams as well. But we'll see if the predictions hold up and France is one and the World Cup winner again. And then I'll put a picture behind me of Lloris holding the the World Cup trophy for Gally over here too. Like I actually want to
I hope it
behind,
doesn't.
when you have your wall empty, just throw it back on there.
We'll put it up on my wall, but as long as we also have the one of them handing him the trophy, him flapping at it and watching it go in behind him, because that's what Hugo Lloris is usually really good at, picking balls out of his net.
Poor Lloris. But have a
Hey.
great week, everybody. We'll see you
Bet.
guys next Monday with probably a picture of Lloris holding a World Cup. Take care.